Hello students, next presentation regarding food chain from ecosystem. The producers, consumers and decomposers of each ecosystem make up a food chain. There are many food chains in a ecosystem. For an ecosystem to work there has to be a flow of energy within it. The organism of the ecosystem need energy in the form of food. The ultimate source of this energy is the sun. Producers like green plants trap solar energy and convert it into the chemical energy of food. When a primary consumer eats the producers, a part of this energy is passed on to it. A food chain shows where energy is transferred and not who eats who. In each transfer, some energy is lost. Therefore, the shorter the food chain, the greater the energy available to that populations. Food chains are of basically two types. First one is the grazing food chain and second one is the detritus food chain. In grazing food chain, this type of food chain starts from the green plants base, goes to grazing herbivorous and on carnivorous. The detritus, that is food chain, is which goes from non-living organic matter into microorganism and then to detritus feeding organism and their predators. That predators means an organism that lives by preying on other organism. The primary consumers is then eaten by a secondary consumer, and the secondary consumers may be eaten by a tertiary consumers, and so on. In this way, energy gets transferred from one consumers to the other next higher level consumers. A series of organisms through which food energy flows in an ecosystem is called as food chain. It may also be defined as follows. A food chain in an ecosystem is a series of organisms in which each organism feeds on the one below it in the series. Characteristics of this food chain is in a food chain there is repeated eating in which each group eats the smaller one and is eaten by the larger one. In a food chain, there is unidirectional flow of energy from sun to producer and then series of consumers. Usually, 80 to 90% of potential energy is lost as a heat at each transfer. Usually, there are 4 to 5 trophic levels in the food chain. Shorter food chain will provide greater energy. A food chain is always straight. Omnivorous generally occupy more than one trophic level in a food chain. This is the picture of examples of food chain. In a forest ecosystem, grass is eaten by the deer and which is turn is eaten by a tiger. The grass, deer and tiger form of a food chain. In this food chain, this energy flows from the grass to the deer. Deer is a primary consumer and the tiger is a secondary consumer. A food chain is a in a grassland ecosystem may consist of grasses and other plants, grasshoppers, frogs, snakes, and hawks. In a freshwater aquatic ecosystem like a pond, the organisms in the food chain include algae, small animals, insects, and their larvae, small fish, big fish, and big eaten bird or animal. These are the food chains. Again, the examples of this food chain is a food chain is always begin with producers, that is herbivorous, means that is plant eaters. Come next in the next chain. They are consumed by carnivores, that is flesh eaters. Few food chain can be long and may extend to the fourth, fifth, and even sixth order of consumers. Food web is the network of food chains where different types of organisms are connected at different trophic levels, so that option of eating and being eaten at each trophic level. Food webs, that is all the food chains in an area, make up the food web of the area. Then this all over food web is also regarding is an ecosystem. To work there has to be flow of energy within it. The organism of the ecosystem need energy in the form of food. So this is all over picture regarding food chain, which is every animal, it depends on each other. Food web. A food web is a complicated system of relationships between plants, animals, and energy. Understanding their connection is very important in helping to understand any ecosystem. So, this is all our system is regarding ecosystem. In an ecosystem, one organism is going to be does not depends on wholly on all our organism or all our ecosystem. Next food web is the resources of that particular are shared, especially at the beginning of the chain. So the food webs are actually made up of smaller food chains which are interconnected. A food chain explains what an organism might eat and what might it eat in a specific scenario. There are usually hundreds of different possible food chains for an organism. For example, a food chain cloud look like this: sun means that is energy. It again converted into plant, that is producer, and next it is mouse, snakes, owls, etc. So these are the all over system. Next, ecology or biology means that is the scientific disciplines of ecology and biodiversity are essential of assessing and mitigating the impact humans have on the world around us. As an environmental consultancy, the ecology and biodiversity services from one of the core offering of the system. When offering these services to clients, we survive the practical and reliable of responsible. So these are the all over ecosystem of food chain or food web. So whenever we thinking about the ecosystem services, then we have to be getting the all the information regarding different level ecosystem and their services. Ecology and biodiversity is basic currency of our examples. Food web, the all our system is depends on the all our herbivorous and carnivorous. Significance of food web is the food web provides alternate pathways of food availability. For example, if particular crop is destroyed due to some disease, the herbivorous in that area do not perish, as this can graze on other type of crops or herbs. Greater the number of these alternate pathways, more stable is the ecosystem. These also help in taking over population of highly functional species of plants and animals. So regarding all our ecosystem, then we have to be getting the information regarding food chain and food webs. And this food web and food webs is going to be community of living organism in conjunction with the non-living components of their environment. Interacting as a system, these biotic and abiotic components are linked together through nutrient cycles and energy flows. Energy enters the system through photosynthesis and incorporated into plant tissue. by feeding on plants and on the other animals play an important role in the movement of matter and energy through the system. They also influence the quantify of plant and microbial biomass present. By breaking down and dead organic matter, is decomposes release carbon back to the atmosphere and facilitate nutrients cycling by converting nutrients stored in dead biomass back to a form of that can be readily used by plants and other microbes. So these also help in checking overpopulation of highly intuitive species of plants and animals, and food webs also help in ecosystem development. Biogeochemical cycle is ecosystem are controlled by external and internal factors. External factors such as climate, parent material, which forms the soil and topography, control the overall structure of the ecosystem but are not themselves influenced by the ecosystem. Unlike external factors, internal factors are controlled. For example, decomposition, root completion, shading, disturbance, succession, and the other types of the species present. That biochemical cycle, that nutrients like carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, oxygen, hydrogen, phosphorus, etc., move in circular path through biotic and abiotic components and are therefore known as biochemical cycle. A reservoir is that portion of the earth that acts as a storehouse of the element. An exchange pool is the portion of the environment from which producers take chemicals such as the atmosphere or soil. The biotic community is the pathway, that is food chains, through which chemicals move. Some cycles are primarily gaseous cycles, that is carbon and nitrogen. Others are, that is sedimentary cycles, that is phosphorus. Ecosystems are controlled by external and internal factors. Ecosystems are dynamic entities. They are subject to periodic disturbances and are in the process of recovering from some past disturbance. Ecosystem in similar environments that are located in different parts of the world can end up doing things very differently simply because they have different pools of species present. Internal factors not only control ecosystem processes but are also controlled by them and are often subject to feedback loops. Resource inputs are generally controlled by external processes like climate and parent material. Resource availability within the ecosystem is controlled by internal factors like decomposition, root completion, or shedding. Although humans operate within ecosystem, their cumulative effects are large enough to influence external factors like climate. Biodiversity affects ecosystem functioning, as do the processes of disturbances and succession. Ecosystems provide a variety of goods and services upon which people depends. The reservoir is that portion of the earth that acts as a storehouse for the element. An exchange pool is the portion of the environment from which producers take chemicals such as the atmosphere or soil. A biotic community is the pathway, that is, food chains, through which chemicals move. Some cycles are primarily, that is, gaseous cycles, carbon and nitrogen. Others are sedimentary cycles, that is, phosphorus. Energy flow in an ecosystem. Energy flow is the key function of an ecosystem. There is unidirectional flow of energy. During each transfer, 80 to 90% energy is lost in a form of heat in metabolic reaction. For example, that is respiration and exertion. 10 to 20% of energy is available in next trophic level. There is corresponding decrease in biomass. Energy follows first and second law of thermodynamics. The Earth. The hydrosphere is the zone of water that covers over three quarters of the Earth. That is, sunlight drives the water cycle, and second, the ability of water to absorb and release great quantities of heat keeps climate within livable range. The atmosphere is the gaseous layer near the Earth, and then atmosphere is concentrated in lowest 10 kilometers, extends thinly out to 1000. Major gases are nitrogen, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is necessary for photosynthesis. Atmosphere has total four layers. First one is troposphere, second stratosphere, third mesosphere, and last one is thermosphere. Troposphere is starts from Earth and extends across 18 km. Lowest part of atmosphere, that is dense atmosphere, that is as altitude increases, temperature decreases. All weather change to place here in troposphere. Clouds are formed here. Then tropopause separates troposphere from stratosphere. Stratosphere is start just above troposphere. It extends up to 50 km. Here atmosphere is dry and dense. Temperature increases due to absorption of ultraviolet radiations. Ozone layer is present here. Stratopause separates atmosphere from mesosphere. Mesosphere is start just above stratosphere. It extends up to 85 km. Temperature again decreases as altitude increases. Meteorites burns and disintegrates here. Mesopause separates the mesosphere from thermosphere. Then stratosphere and stratopause and mesosphere, that is mesopause, are middle layer of the atmosphere. Next one is thermosphere. Start just above mesosphere. It extends up to 600 km high. Temperature increases with altitude due to sun energy. Thermosphere is subdivided into two layers, that is ionosphere and exosphere. Oxygen is necessary for cellular respiration and is protective ozone in upper atmosphere. The lithosphere is a rocky substrate that extends about 100 kilometers deep. Second one is weathering of rocks supplies minerals to plants and eventually forms soil. Next, soil contains decayed organic materials that recycles nutrients to plants. The biosphere is the thin layer where life is possible between the outer atmosphere and the lithosphere. So these are all our information regarding biodiversity, their food chain, and all our layers, and the stratosphere. Atmosphere has total four layers. In that particular system, the ecosystem have are controlled both by external and internal factors. External factors, also called as state factors, control the overall structure of an ecosystem and the way things work within it, but are not themselves influenced by the ecosystem. The most important of these this is climate. Climate determines the biome in which the ecosystem is embedded. Rainfall patterns and seasonal temperatures influence that photosynthesis and thereby determine the amount of water and energy available to the ecosystem. The parent material determines the nature of the soil in an ecosystem. They influences the supply of minerals, nutrients. That topography are also control the ecosystem process by affecting things like microclimate, soil development, and movement of water through a system. For example, ecosystem can be quite different if situated in a small depression on the landscape and versus one different on an adjustive hillside. Unlike external factors, internal factors in ecosystem not only control ecosystem processes but are also controlled by them. Consequently, they are often subject to feedback loops. While the resource input are generally controlled by external processes like climate and parent material, the availability of these resources within the ecosystem is controlled by internal factors like decomposition, root completion, or shedding. Other factors like disturbance, succession, or the types of the species present are also internal factors. So these are all our atmospheres and their basic information of number of atmosphere and food web, food chain and biodiversity basic concepts. Thank you.